Arguably the most important part of a business document is its introduction. It is so important to, from the very beginning, capture the interest of your readers, also of your viewers if you're presenting something. This is exactly what we're going to talk about today in this video. My name is Heinrich. Welcome to my channel Firm Learning. This is the place where I want to help you become successful in the first years of your career. Today I want to introduce you to a framework, an introduction framework that is taught in almost every onboarding program of any of the large consulting firms like McKinsey, BCG or Bain. I trust this will be important because it's just so versatile. You can use it for almost every business document that you use. The first that I want you to understand is that good business writing is not something that either comes or does not come to you. Like many other things, it's a skill that needs to be practiced and can be learned. And for sure, in consulting onboarding programs at the large strategy consulting firms, this always played a big role. And an important part of that is the introduction. Because compare it to people reading a book. Clearly no one will ever be as excited to read your business document as the person might be excited just to read their favorite book, their favorite novel that's just filled with action, excitement, or whatever other topic they're really interested in. So as a good business writer, with your introduction, you want to create at least a little bit of this excitement, of this interest of your reader in your document. So as most good books, your introduction should have a beginning, a middle part, and an ending. And there's one framework which is very commonly used and taught in consulting firms and which I believe is at the core of almost all good introductions. And this framework is the framework of situation, complication, solution. So let's now go over these three fundamental components of introduction, and let's start with the situation. So the situation is the start of introduction where you briefly describe how the situation currently looks like. So here you're looking for a couple of sentences where you know that other people will agree to them. So you know that the people reading your document will say, yes, this is exactly the situation that we're currently facing. This is what the status quo, what this currently looks like. So you don't want to go with something controversial, but rather something where you know that you have the buy-in of everyone reading this, just to make sure that this is captivating and you will have common grounds with all your audience. Of course, and this is then true for the other parts as well, how detailed this is going to be will depend on the overall context of your document. So if your total document, your total memo is only 2 or 3 pages long, probably this whole introduction will only be 1 or 2 paragraphs, whereas if your document is 50 pages, 100 pages, or even longer, then likely this introductory part can also be 1 or 2 pages or so, or even longer. What's important for these first sentences of your situation part is that what you write is captivating, so it leaves the reader being interested in what you are saying and wanting to understand further how the situation will evolve, what you will have to say about the situation. So this is this first part of your introduction. So let me make a couple of examples for what sentences you could write here for the situation. Here I'm looking at my other screen to read them. So for instance, you could write something like, the profit margin of our company has been steadily declining over the last 5 years. That seems interesting. So what do we do about this, right? This is then the next question, how this will be making hopefully of interest to your readers. Or next, the public health crisis our world is currently facing created a significant impact on our everyday life. So again, an uncontroversial statement that somehow leaves me asking, okay, like what do we do? How does this continue? Or next, YouTube channels have a great capacity to teach educational material. So I hope we all agree with that. But once again, what does this mean? What is the implication of that, right? So this is exactly the effect that you want to create. Start with something uncontroversial and then build based on that. So before we now continue, let me introduce you to the sponsor of this week's video, DataCamp. DataCamp is an online learning platform where you can improve your data analysis skills. And you know that this is something I talk about all the time. This is really a crucial part of your skill set if you want to succeed in any consulting role, and I trust in many roles in industry and for sure in banking as well. With DataCamp, there are no previous data skills needed to get started. You can learn from things as basic as Excel 101 to more advanced technical things like for instance database manipulation in SQL. So for sure, if the things that I show you here in this video are over your head, you really have no idea what this is all about, there are some also very introductory courses on Excel and DataCamp which I trust can help you. They have over 300 courses with interactive learning, and you can also learn on the go with the mobile app that they have. Personally, I very much liked the Introduction to SQL course, which already helped me several times on my own projects when I needed to interact with databases. So give it a try, and I trust that working with DataCamp indeed can fast track your data analysis skills, and these for sure are so crucial in any consulting role, but also many other related roles as well. So if this piqued your interest and you would like to try out DataCamp, then invest in yourself. Check out DataCamp via the link in the video description, and you will get access to the first chapter of every single course for free. Let's continue with part 2 of your introduction, and this is the complication part. So these should be then the sentences that directly follow the situation part. And here introducing some elements which make the whole situation a bit more complex, a bit more complicated. Maybe there's an additional problem that is part of the situation that you're describing. So something that maybe now is indeed a little bit more controversial. So here maybe there are some people in the room or some people reading this that would not necessarily agree, or maybe this is just a little bit more controversial, but this is then fine for this second part. One thing that's important to understand is that the complication does not necessarily need to be a problem. It can also just indeed be just an additional factor that adds to the complexity, an additional factor that just makes the whole situation more interesting, more worthwhile of our attention. Things like that can be great complications as well. Now, to make it a bit easier for you to understand what a strong complication is, let me talk about this book, The Pyramid Principle. This is a book that I already recommended to you in some of the prior videos. And in the video today, I'm also borrowing on a couple of concepts that I explained in this book. And indeed, the situation, complication, solution framework is also a framework that is picked up in here and explained. And here there are a couple of examples what great complications could be. Let me just read a couple of them for you to make it clear. So a good complication could be something went wrong. So you introduce the situation and now you are adding an additional point that shows how something went wrong. Or another one could be something could go wrong. So what would that be, right? Like what are you describing? Something could go wrong in the situation that you're currently facing. Something changed or something could change. So maybe we all agree that currently the situation looks like this, but maybe this is not how it will look like forever. Or here's what you might expect to find in it. So what exactly is in the situation? What is going on? Or here's someone with a different point of view. Maybe we all agree that this is how the situation currently looks like, but other people hold these other views. This is how other people see it. Or in this situation, we have 3 alternatives. So this is currently what we are facing, and this is now what we could do about it. So I hope you understand the complication does not necessarily need to be a problem, but just something that adds to the situation, makes it a little bit more spicy, more worthwhile of our attention. Then the last part of the complication should always be a question. A question that builds on the complication and is then usually the most logical question to ask. So for instance, if then you are introducing in the complication the point that someone else might have a different view on something, well then the question is, so what is this view? Or if we have now 3 potential solutions to address an issue, what are these solutions? What could we do? Or if the situation is changing, how is it changing? Right? So always asking this logical next question that also the reader will ask him or herself, because this is of course what captivates the interest, what these people want to know. And now it starts to become a little bit like an interesting book where you just want to know how it continues, right? How this goes on. This is exactly how you want to captivate the interest of the people. Now let's continue with the solution aspect of this introduction, so the last aspect of it. And of course, the solution should provide a nice and concise answer to the question that you posed in the complication segment. What's here also important to understand is that similar with the complication, the solution does not necessarily need to be a solution to a specific problem. Just call it like that just to make it a bit more like actionable. But it can also be understood just as a key message, a key insight that you want to share. So based on the questions that we just asked ourselves earlier, you provide a good and clear answer, the solution, the key message that you want to share and which is now the starting point for the top-down communication message that you will have now to follow. That's the starting point to the main document that you are now outlining. What's important about this solution section also to provide a proper introduction then to the main part of the document is then in the end to also outline the main structure of the document. So talk to the reader about what they can now expect if they continue reading. So how have you structured it? How have you now detailed the solution in the main part of your document? What's important on this though, as also discussed in many of my slide writing videos, once again, if you're interested more in this content, I will link the slide writing playlist of my channel above. It's important that you do not talk about the structure, but rather the ideas, the contents. Right? So avoid saying now in the solution in the end that now the document, for instance, will also outline enablers of your ideas, but instead in half a sentence write what the most important enabler for your solution is. So to make this now easier to understand, let me just provide you with a simple example of how such a total introduction could look like, now based on a document that is maybe rather short and not that long. And this introduction goes as follows. Let me just read it out to you. The profit margins of our company have been steadily declining over the last 5 years. This is the situation as we've already seen it also earlier. Next, this is now the complication. In addition, new competitors have entered our home market this year, putting additional pressure on our market share. What can we do to address this issue? So here now you're introducing an additional factor that makes it even more challenging. Maybe it's a bit more controversial also, but surely it provides a why act now. It provides an answer to the question why now something needs to happen, why this whole issue is really worthwhile of our attention right now. And indeed now you could continue in saying, this report outlines how a shift from product selling to solution selling could defend our market share and increase our profitability. We will highlight what processes and capabilities we need to make this happen and how the implementation roadmap looks like. So here now in this solution segment of the introduction, you're first saying what your hypothesis is of how this could be addressed, namely the shift from product selling to solution selling. And now you also provide a brief outline of what is that will follow, namely what the key segments are, but rather in the terms of ideas and the structure elements, namely processes and capabilities, which you feel like are a very important part of that, but also an implementation roadmap and how this will look like, how this will happen. So situation, complication, solution. It is just my humble experience that if you set up your introductions in this way, you will in most cases succeed in providing quite an effective and also interest capturing introduction to your business documents. I can just encourage you to try this out in the next document that you write. And of course, let me know how this worked out for you. What I can only tell you is that this is just a framework that is applied excessively in consulting. What do you think about using the situation, complication, solution framework for your introductions? Does this make sense? Do you have other things that you know that you would love to share with the From Learning community? Please let me know in the comments. And as always, if you took any value out of this video at all, please hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm and also subscribe to this channel to stay up to date on all my content. I once again want to thank DataCamp for sponsoring this video and thereby contributing to the From Learning community. And of course, also big thanks to all the members of From Learning. My name is Heinrich. I'm releasing new videos every single Saturday. So see you soon next week. Until then, all the best to all of you and bye-bye.